All right, Josh McDaniels picking up his career as a head coach after an extended break. He's been out for so long, most people forget he was ever even an NFL head coach. He was with the Broncos from 2009 into 2010, long enough to draft Tim Tebow in the first round. Not long enough to ever actually use Tim Tebow, but he did put together the playbook that eventually was activated in the 2011 season when Tebow mania struck and lingered until Bill Belichick killed it twice. Here's Josh McDaniels, who almost left the Patriots 4 years ago for the Colts, explaining yesterday at his introductory press conference, business suit mandatory, why the time was now to leave the Patriots.
I feel blessed to the people that have impacted me along the way, starting with my mom and dad. My family have played such an important role in me being here today. I've been patient. I've been selective, maybe to a fault sometimes. People wanted me to do things a little earlier than maybe I did them, but it was going to take a special place for me to really leave where I was, and I found that here in Las Vegas.
Oh, Indianapolis not happy with Josh McDaniels today. By implication, Indianapolis not special because, look, he had taken that job. He had verbally accepted the job. Matt Eberflus, who coincidentally we'll hear from in a little bit, had accepted the position as defensive coordinator under the assumption that McDaniels, once Super Bowl 52 ended, would accept the job officially by putting his Josh McDaniels at the bottom of a contract. Ultimately, as we know, didn't happen. 4 years later, he jumps on board the Raiders. I have one other little minor critique as well, because again, this is the first impression he's making. And I think the suit works for him. Can we pull up a full screen of the Josh McDaniels business suit look? I got a problem with the pin. Just a minor detail. The pin is awesome. The Raiders pin that he was wearing is awesome. But if you're going to go big pin, you got to move it in a little farther on the lapel. We got to have a little pin training here. It ain't that hard. It's got to be symmetrical. It's got to be in the right spot. That pin is all the way out at the edge of the lapel. Move that pin in a little bit, straighten it up. If you're going to go Raiders logo, you got to make it look good. It can't look like it was just thrown on there by a 5-year-old. Let's get the pin in the right spot. Let's pay attention to some of these details. And I know that sounds extremely superficial, but that's what's being blasted out to the world as the first impression of Josh McDaniels as the head coach of the Raiders. A minor point, but in a profession where success flows from obsessive attention to detail, I'd like to think they get the pin in a better spot. Right out of the gate. Just right out of the gates. Just move the pin a little bit. Just a little bit. Doesn't take much for someone to say, that pin needs it. Just move the pin in a little bit. It'll look better. Twist it a little bit. It'll look better. It'll look better. Send a better message. All right, what other messages did Josh McDaniels have to send? How about this? Oh, because it didn't go well for him in Denver. And you've heard Sims say a couple of times this past week that one of the reasons it didn't go well in Denver for McDaniels was because they were having money issues in Denver. Sims' assessment, Sims' recollection, don't sue me. I don't even know who would sue me at this point because they don't have an owner. They'll officially be putting the for sale sign in the front yard as soon as this week. But Sims, from his time there, talking about his signing bonus, they couldn't pay him at the time that he was signed. They had to defer it until money was coming in during the season. A lot of teams do that. Off-season, ain't a lot of money laying around. In-season, you got the TV money flowing from the league office on a regular basis. You got your ticket money coming in. That's when Sims was able to get his signing bonus. So Sims believes that the lack of appropriate football finances back in 2009, 2010 kept Josh McDaniels from being as successful as he wanted to be. Let's hear from McDaniels as to why he believes he failed first time around as coach of the Denver Broncos.
When I went to Denver, I knew a little bit of football. I didn't really know people and how important that aspect of this process and maintaining the culture and building the team was, and I failed, and I didn't succeed at it. And so, looking at that experience has been one of the best things in my life in terms of my overall growth as a person, as a coach. What do I need to do different? How do I need to handle my role if I have another opportunity and do better at it? And I feel like that's really an area that I've tried to grow in with our staff in New England. Our offensive staff working together, collaborating, supporting one another, impacting them, serving them, helping them grow as coaches, as players, with our guys, that we're coaching. So that's the biggest. I would say that's the biggest area for me, and I know how important it is as a head coach to be able to do that.
I appreciate the candor, but I just wonder how and why it's going to be any different this time. Because where did he ultimately end up after things didn't work out in Denver? He was the offensive coordinator for the Rams in 2011. Then after the Rams ended up being eliminated from postseason contention, didn't make it to the playoffs that year, they released him. Remember that? They released him, and he went back to the Patriots and served as a consultant for the balance of the postseason. Then he kind of worked his way back in. He's been there ever since, and that sparked, in many respects, this second act that we saw. We had the Patriots pre-2010, post-2010, two different dynasties that rose up in the NFL. We just feel like McDaniels has been there forever. And again, a lot of people don't even remember that he was a head coach of the Broncos. But if you go back to the Patriot Way incubator for a decade, I don't know why you're confident you're suddenly going to become a people person. Why do you think that? What about the atmosphere? What about the environment? And I'm not saying it's not successful. It's highly successful. But there isn't a whole lot of warm and fuzzies in New England. There's a lot of work. There's a lot of blunt talk. There's a lot of eye rolling that happens by Bill Belichick. There's a lot of impatience with incompetence. And it's successful. My point is this. I don't know why Josh McDaniels thinks he's any different now than he was 10 years ago. He may understand the game a lot better than he did. He may be able to have more success right away in Las Vegas than he had in Denver. And I think the key for anyone who tries to take the Patriot way to another city, and we've seen it fail. We saw it fail most recently in Detroit. When Bob Quinn got there, Bob Quinn was determined to eventually hire Matt Patricia. The problem is Jim Caldwell was doing pretty well as the head coach, so he had to wait until Jim Caldwell had a sufficiently not good season to fire Caldwell and hire the guy he wanted to hire right out of the gates. I believe Bob Quinn wanted to make the swap right away. First year. Didn't. And that kind of screwed things up. But ultimately, when you go Patriot Way, at a place where Patriot Way has not been the way, it pisses people off. Sorry, London, but it does. There are people who are in the building all across the organization who sense the difference when there's a new sheriff in town and he's not afraid to start throwing people in the hoosegow. And he's not afraid to treat people differently in a way that is a little more harsh, that has a higher level of accountability, more demanding. It does make people less comfortable. They start worrying about their jobs. Am I going to be fired? It builds resentment. And if you don't win, what happens is you end up having enemies who become more and more active. It's what happened to Urban Meyer. Now, Urban Meyer's a different situation altogether. We wrote something last week about some comments he had to Dan Dockich of just the fundamental differences between the college game and the pro game, which made me wonder, did you do anything to try to envision or understand or learn what the differences were? Like you just kind of fall into it and realize, hey, this is different than college. I mean, no crap. Almost said the other word. I predict I will say the other word at some point between now and 9 a.m. Eastern. It's a reason to hang around. You never know when I'm going to let a profanity fly. But if Meyer had been successful, he'd still be there. Warts and all the stuff that people didn't like about him. If he'd gone to the playoffs, you think he would have been fired? Hell no. So there are plenty of coaches out there that act like jerks, that aren't people persons. People persons, that sounds weird too. But, they win. Bill Belichick wins so he can act the way that he does. You win. If you don't win, Patriot Way doesn't last. Now, we'll see whether or not it works in Las Vegas because John Gruden wasn't exactly a people person. So maybe Josh McDaniels in comparison is going to be a breath of fresh air, right? Because Gruden was kind of in your face and tell you what you're doing wrong and tell you what you need to do. We've seen the clips time and again of him jawing at Chris Sims, and maybe Gruden mellowed. He had to mellow. That was one of the talking points as Gruden got the job 4 years ago. Derek Carr was going to crumble if John Gruden treated him the way he treated other quarterbacks like a Chris Sims. So Gruden moderated his approach. We'll see. We'll see. But you got to win. If you win, you can get away with a lot of stuff. I just don't know how much more of a people person Josh McDaniels is going to be after spending so many years back with the ultimate non-people person in Bill Belichick. Hall of Fame coach, best NFL coach ever. I'll make that argument. One of the best coaches we've ever seen. I'll make that argument too, but not a people person. So where are you learning those skills? You're taking a seminar at night? Is there something at the Holiday Inn you went to on the free time you don't have because your coach expects you to work all the time? Where do you pick up your people person skills? You got a Dale Carnegie book you're carrying around somewhere? I don't know. We'll find out. We'll see how it works for Josh McDaniels. And I'm fascinated by the quarterback question. Who's it going to be? Is it Derek Carr entering the last year of his contract? I think if Josh McDaniels is on board with Derek Carr, you may need to handle that contract. You may need some certainty. You don't want him in a lame duck year if he's your guy. Do you want to give him a year to prove he's your guy? Is that how it's going to go? Then you run the risk of having to use the franchise tag if everything works. Or is there some other way? Is Aaron Rodgers? I don't know why Aaron Rodgers would want to go to the AFC West, whether it's Denver or the Raiders, with what they have going on there. But is it Aaron Rodgers? Is it Tom Brady? Does Tom Brady's 1 year FU ESPN tour, if he does indeed return out of spite, the ultimate all-in spite move, I'm kind of rooting for that now. I kind of find myself every time I see a Tom Brady development thinking, kind of hope he comes back. I hope he comes back just to spite ESPN for letting the cat out of bag prematurely when he was planning to otherwise retire. But is there a way? Look, if Tom Brady wants to leave the Buccaneers, you think they're going to tell him, no, we have you under contract. You have to play for us or play for no one. Do you really think they're going to tell that to the guy who pulled the franchise out of kind of mediocrity? Mediocrity may be a kind description of where the Buccaneers had been. Do you think they're going to do that if he says, I've really been thinking about it, reflecting. The only way that I can get myself in the right mindset to do it again is, I want to go. I want to try it somewhere. I want to try to go championship with 3 different teams. I don't know that he's going to do that, and I'd be surprised if he does because his family's happy in Tampa. But still, you can't not at least wonder about what may happen with Josh McDaniels in Las Vegas. And quarterback situation not yet fully decided. Maybe. Crazier things have happened this month. Well, not this month because it's a new month. Happy February. Last month. Many crazier things happened last month. We can only hope this month is as crazy as last month was.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.